Hey guys, it is Tamara. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the basics of psychosis, and this is a video that has been highly requested from many of you. You know, when we're talking about personality disorders and we're talking about narcissism and sociopaths and psychopathy and borderline personality, it's really easy for the topic to switch to psychosis. And one of the reasons why is because it's such an underdeveloped topic on YouTube. You know, it's like, you know, you can find anything on YouTube. The only thing that you cannot find that, you know, really clicks with you and really answers your questions and provides the basics is a YouTube video on psychosis. So I'm going to do a YouTube video today as a highly requested video from my clients, people that consult with me, and from many of you, my subscribers, my friends on YouTube. So what I'm going to do is jump on into the basics of psychosis for you today in this video. And then for all of you who are subscribed and who participate, thank you so much. And for those who are new, I encourage you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button right over here so that you can stick around with us and be a part of our growing and our validating community. I think the benefits for you in today's video is that I'm going to highlight some of the basics of psychosis, and I really want to highlight some things that tend to be rather controversial when you're looking at the topic of psychosis. So let's go ahead and just jump on in, all right? So what do I mean by psychosis? You know, when I talk to clients or I talk to people who are consulting with me, or I'm giving a webinar or some kind of training, or I'm at a conference, when I say the word psychosis, it's really hard for my audience or the person I'm talking to grasp psychologically what that means. So let me explain it. So psychosis is basically a disconnect from reality. It's a connection with reality that has been lost, okay? It's not a wish type of thing. It's not a fantasy. It's not a you need sleep. It's not a state of being high or drunk. It's a state of losing contact with reality. And what that means is that you are not able to connect reality with your experience. Okay, you're not able to connect reality with your experience. You begin to almost create this new and different reality for yourself. And that new and different reality can really seem threatening, right? You could create this whole world around one particular thing, and you can't figure out how to unravel yourself. So you begin to actually believe the world that you are creating or that your mind is creating. I'm going to actually put in the description box below a video that I highly recommend, and it's called The Voices or Inner Voices. I don't remember, guys, so I'm going to put it in the description box below for you so that you can go ahead and check out that movie. There's another movie known as A Beautiful Mind, and I think that's another movie that's good for you to get as well. So I will put that down in the description box for you. But yes, it's a disconnect from reality. It really makes it difficult for people to tune into their reality. Now, there's two ways that this can happen, okay? And one way is known as delusions. Delusions are false thoughts believed to be true despite evidence to the contrary. So it's like a strong conviction. You believe with all of your heart and all of your mind that your belief is true. You don't even consider it a delusion. Some individuals are intelligent enough to go online and type in delusion and look at the definition and say, that's not me, even though it clearly is, you know? It's because, again, they are detached from reality. There's a disconnect. So it's really hard for them to see themselves. They have a lack of personal insight, an inability to look at themselves and say, hey, you know what? That is me. And so because of that, family has to get involved, friends, spouses, you know, mental health professionals, doctors. So delusions is one way that you can lose touch with reality, okay? And there's a variety of delusions. Now, we will talk about that in a second, but let me go ahead to hallucinations. So hallucinations are basically sensory experiences. The way that I want you guys to categorize these two symptoms, I will call them, is delusions is more like the cognitive thing, okay? It's the cognitive piece of this psychosis. When you lose touch with reality, your mind begins to go through a series of delusions and thoughts that may not be true. To you, they are true. To others, they are not, because that's their reality, right? You're disconnected. So I kind of want you to see delusions as more of a cognitive disability or a cognitive deficit at the moment, okay? And I want you to think of hallucinations as a sensory experience, right? It has something to do with your senses, your eyesight, your hearing, your taste, your smell, your senses on your skin, on your body, right? Tactile. So, hallucinations are more sensory based. Delusions are more cognitive, right? They have a lot to do with, how you see things and how you're looking at things, okay? How you're envisioning your world and making sense out of your world. Now, let's get into the different kinds of delusions that there are. So, there's quite a few delusions, but I'm going to highlight just a few that you're probably familiar with. The first delusion is known as erotomania. Erotomania is a delusion that happens with an individual who really begins to, almost in a starstruck way, begins to like or fall for another individual who they see on YouTube, on TV, on a music video, in a newspaper, online somewhere, in public, in a grocery store. They begin to look at that person and they emotionally attach to that person. And when they do that, right, they begin to imagine that there's a relationship, and they almost begin to look for clues. It's like their mind begins to look for clues on how that relationship can eventually come together, right? So during that process of looking for clues, that individual starts to create a whole scenario. And if it's an individual who's on YouTube or who's on TV or somebody in a music video or somebody on television, you can begin to watch every video or every segment that person is in, and every little thing they say can become a new clue, right? So if I say something like, I'm going to see you tomorrow at 9:00. That'll be my new time to post videos. Somebody may take that to mean that I'm going to meet them in public at 9:00, and that meeting is just between the two of us, right? Or you could see a celebrity on television and begin to really emotionally attach to them and believe that someday we're going to get in a relationship, we're going to have children, we're going to be happily married. And there are people who actually create a real world around that delusion. And it's very, 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 very real to them. All right, so that's erotomania. There have been famous stories, I'll post in the description box below, of individuals who have become starstruck with celebrities, and they have, they have stalked them and chased them, and they've even murdered and killed them. And it's a very, very sad reality, but erotomania is a very, very real delusion. All right, the next delusion, guys, is persecutory. And I'm sure you're very familiar with this. These are the delusions that individuals tend to have when they feel that they are being persecuted, right? So they feel like somebody is telling them to kill themselves. They feel like somebody is saying, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're never going to be anything, right? They feel like people are calling them names or talking about them behind their back, right? They feel like, they're being crucified, for lack of a better word. These individuals often tend to be the more aggressive ones with psychosis, because when they feel persecuted, they're going to act out, they're going to protect themselves, they're going to defend, and they may even get so fed up that they get aggressive with whoever they think is the persecutor, right? The one who's pointing the finger. So persecutory delusions can get really intense, and they can really feel real, and that's the scary part. All right, so that's persecutory delusions. God told me to do it, or Jesus told me to do it, or Buddha told me to do such and such, or whatever the case may be. It's a persecutory delusion, and they feel that somebody else is telling them to do something, or they feel that they are being crucified in some way. All right, that's persecutory. The next is religious delusions, and that's usually an individual who has some awareness of religion. Not always, but sometimes they have some roots in Catholicism, Christianity, and when they become delusional, they may begin to connect religious dots. They may begin to become very engulfed in their Bible or in their Holy Quran. If they are Muslims, they may find themselves getting really engulfed in religious articles and spiritual awakenings and new births and new beginnings. They may even go so far as to believe that they are God, that they are Jesus, right? That they have been reincarnated. And so this delusion can really, really go far enough to cause the individual to commit suicide, because they may believe that they are doing something for the betterment of the religion, or they are doing something for the betterment of the people that are in their same religion, right? So there may be some confusion there about what that religion, what the purpose of that religion, I should say, is serving for them. And they may feel that they need to sacrifice themselves in some way. So it can get really murky. Okay. The next delusion is a paranoid delusion, and paranoia can really get bad. And we're not talking about, hey, I'm just paranoid. We're talking about a paranoid delusion where the delusion is so fixed and so ingrained in the person's mind that they really do believe that they are being watched, chased, persecuted, demonized, that the CIA and the government is after them, right? That they fought in World War II, and people from that century or that time is coming back to spy on them. That there are people hiding in the oh God, I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, guys. I hate when this happens to me. In the vents, that's what I'm looking for. They may feel that there are people watching them in the vents. They may feel like there are people watching them in the blinds, right? They may close the blinds at night or in the daytime, really, in a paranoid fashion. They may not like to go outside showing their face. They may wear a hat and shades, right? They could get really, really paranoid. These individuals strongly believe that what they are experiencing is true. And again, you may get a really, really intelligent individual who's paranoid, who may say, Google, am I paranoid? And then, Google will explain that. And they may say, see, I'm not paranoid. I'm not delusional. And they are. They don't have the ability. Individuals who have psychotic disorders like schizophrenia or some kind of psychosis, unspecified, right? There's a variety of psychotic disorders, schizoaffective disorder, there's bipolar disorder with psychosis. All of those mental illnesses can cause the individual to really go inside of themselves, really be kind of introverted and internalized and isolated and withdrawn in such a way that they can't see that, yes, you are delusional. It really has to get bad for these individuals before they can actually see that they are delusional, that they have an illness. Okay. Hallucinations are just as disturbing as delusions. Now, imagine, trying to sleep at night and, the minute you close your eyes, you see a picture of Satan, right? Imagine, trying to do your homework or trying to do your job and you're hearing your name being called, right? Or you're hearing whispers of your name. I had a patient about 5 years ago who, she says every time she would go to her job, she would sit there and answer phones and type up papers, but all she would hear was Karen, 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 and of course that's a false name just for her privacy, but it's like a whisper, and it gets louder and louder and louder, and it's like the individual holds their head and they're just like, I want the voices to stop, if you can imagine what that's like. There have been movies like that where the voices get so loud, all they want is for the voices to stop. And they become so internalized and isolated and withdrawn that they begin to have what's called negative symptoms. And those negative symptoms are typically symptoms of schizophrenia, but they include things like, there's a loss of motivation. There's what's known as anhedonia. There's a lack of pleasure in things, right? There's, a lack of ambition. They may not bathe or take care of what's known as their ADLs, right? So they may not do the things that they need to do in daily life. They may find themselves, really struggling with getting their job done and meeting the expectations of other people. They may have what's known as a flat affect, right? Which is like a flat face. They have no real emotions on their face. You can't really tell what their face is saying. It's like it all blends in, right? It's like this flat look of discouragement, of death, of dying inside, right? They may also, neglect to talk to people. They may also neglect their families, their children. So these are known as negative symptoms, the inability to function in daily life because you're depressed, you're unambitious, you're unmotivated, you're sad all the time, you're anxious all the time, you're tearful, you're apathetic. You may also have what's known as disorganized thinking. So your thoughts may be very confused and all over the place, right? You may may have a hard time aligning things appropriately or remembering events like you should remember them. There's also disorganized speech, where it's really hard sometimes to make out what the individual is trying to tell you, what they're trying to say. It's like they're stuttering, or they're having a really hard time expressing themselves verbally. It can get really, really severe, where these individuals must be hospitalized, because that's the only place that they can be taken care of around the clock. That's really why these individuals end up in the hospital. Now, other reasons why they end up in the hospital is because they can't function in daily life, right? They can't take care of their ADLs. They can't take care of their families. They can't take care of their job. They can't take care of themselves. And so because of that, they end up in the hospital. Somebody else must care for them. Somebody else must take care of them and help them get to the next stage. Now, things really get bad when medication is entered into the scene most of the time, because there's lots of medications like Haldol, or you may have heard of haloperidol, or olanzapine. These kind of drugs, or even Abilify, can be introduced to the scene. These drugs are antipsychotic medications. And what happens with these drugs is they work on specific parts of the brain. I talk about how medication affects the brain right up here in this video. It's not about antipsychotic medications, but I do talk about meds. I am going to be doing a video on antipsychotic medications, so stick around for that. But these antipsychotic medications work on specific parts of the brain that most of the time has something to do with the same areas of the brain. Excuse me. I need some water, guys. The same areas of the brain that are affected by Parkinson's disease. So there's a lot of areas of the brain that are affected by antipsychotic medications, and it can cause motor tics, it could cause dry mouth, it could cause dizziness, fainting, high blood pressure, confusion, psychosis. It can also cause depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. It could also cause disorganized thoughts and speech, confusion. So medication can really complicate things. Sometimes it's a lifesaver. Other times it can complicate things. Okay, so, there are a couple of signs that I want you guys to be aware of when you're thinking about psychotic disorders. I want you to think of things kind of broken up in categories. So cognitive and behavioral. So cognitive challenges with psychosis would be confusion, memory loss, okay, racing thoughts, disorganized thoughts, right? Your thoughts are kind of all over the place. Unwanted thoughts, right? Thoughts that are just popping into your mind, almost like flashbacks, Also, too, assigning personal meaning to things that really have nothing to do with you, okay? That's another cognitive deficit. Now, behavioral deficits may be physical aggression sometimes, agitation, restlessness, right? Not being able to really sleep or feel comfortable. Some people have sensory hallucinations where they can't lay down at night. Like they feel like things are crawling on them or inside of their body, crawling through their body, parasites crawling in their stomach. So these individuals can really struggle with a lot, and it takes a lot sometimes for their families to cope and to deal with them. I'm going to continue to talk about this subject, guys. This is not the final video. We're going to have 2 more videos about this topic, and I'm going to give you some suggestions on what to do if you have a family member like this and how to talk to them. So thank you so much for coming to my channel today, guys, to be with me in this video. I encourage you to give it a thumbs up if it was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.